Welcome to the channel, welcome to the show. I'm John, your host for, also known as the Southern Constitutionalist. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so I figured what the hell, might as well. You guys can go to my webpage, check out theconstitutionalconfederate.com. You'll see where I've done some writing and a podcast more recently. There's actually some writings in there that I'm very proud of. Some science, some hypothetical science. One of my favorites was glow-in-the-dark humans, and then I've got another article where I wrote a little bit about biohackers and genetic manipulation. Go check them out. That's up your alley, or you're just curious. It's written in layman's terms. One of the most recent ones is an excerpt from a story that I kind of sort of writing. I'm towards the end of it, and got a second one floating around in my head, so I need to sit down and work on that one a little bit too. For the podcast, I did an episode. I released it, I believe it was just yesterday or the day before, and basically what it was is there's a lot of people who don't know much about the Declaration of Independence other than the first sentence, maybe the first paragraph. So I sat down and I read it to you guys. If you don't really have time or don't think you have time, click on the podcast. It's probably 20 minutes, maybe less. Declaration of Independence is actually a one-page document as it's written, or as it was written. You guys might be able to hear the thunder in the background. But I got it from, I love this website, National Archives. I believe it's nationalarchives.gov. I do a lot of my research involving Constitution and Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and some other stuff there. A lot of our documents, a lot of our historical documents are there. And they're usually broken down. Just really good source material if you ever want to know more about the accurate history of our country. Now look, I'm not shying away from the fact that our country is like every other country in the fact that we have black marks on our record. We have bad things that we've done in the past. There isn't a country in the world who doesn't have that. So, but what makes us different, it's not just our system of government, although that's completely different too. Even other countries that we've helped to rebuild their democratic government agencies, so to speak, still don't have anyone like ours. But what really makes us different is that we try to learn from our past. We acknowledge it, we write it down, we talk about it, we look for ways to improve it. And we look for ways to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So, one of the things I did not mention in that reading, there's a little blurb at the bottom where I talk a little bit. One of the things I didn't mention, although I probably should have, and I thought about it, but it slipped my mind while I was recording, is that in the original Declaration, the original copy of it, when they list off the charges against the king, one of the charges is that he was the one who brought slavery and kind of sort of really and truly pushed slavery on the agricultural systems for the colonies. Historical records will show, they all agreed that it had to be a unanimous signing and it had to be a unanimous agreement. Well, South Carolina and Georgia refused to sign the Declaration while addressing slavery, because the Declaration, they actually wanted to end slavery at that point in time. and South Carolina and Georgia, those colonies, slavery was a really big part of their economy, being so agricultural. They refused as long as slavery was mentioned in it. So it was taken out. Although majority of the signers for that did not agree with removing it because it had to be unanimous, and those two colonies would not agree. Kind of left them no choice but to take it out, which is unfortunate. But if you go back and you look at the Constitution itself, they actually had plans in there for limiting and ending slavery, phasing it out in the original Constitution. If you go back and look at American history, it didn't work out the way that they had planned or they had hoped. It didn't end as soon as they wanted it to, for various reasons. But at the same time, it still ended. And, you know, a lot of people want to say the Civil War, the Civil War, the Civil War. Well, I hate to break the news to you guys, but if you go back and look at old documents, letters, and so on, less than 3% of the population in the South owned slaves. Your cruelest slave owners, known for abuse and murder and just straight up misogyny, were black slave owners. That's the truth. In fact, the most cruelest one in recorded history books was a black slave owner out of Georgia. He was very, very bloodthirsty. He looked for any reason to leave scars on his slaves. But going back to the whole discussion of the Civil War, to be perfectly honest, slavery, even in the South, South Carolina and most of Georgia, not all of it, slavery was on its way out at the time of the Civil War. If you go back and you look at the reasons for secession of South Carolina, everybody goes on and on about slavery. And yes, slavery is in there, and it covers quite a few things, but part of what they talk about is breach of contract between the North and the South, and part of that breach of contract was the Constitution was written that for anybody who was indentured servitude, who was a slave, an indentured servant, or a criminal under making pittance by manual labor, so on and so forth, if they ever ran and they fled to a northern state, the northern states were required to return them. Northern states weren't doing it. One of the things that's actually mentioned in there is that they had violent criminals that were wanted in the South. Violent criminals. To use today's terms, they wanted them extradited back to the South so that they could face their, whether it was trial or face their conviction, serve their punishment, whatever. Those guys weren't returned either. And it didn't matter if they were white, black, Indian, Hispanic, Asian, Mexican. The North didn't return them. That's one of the things that's talked about in the Articles of Secession, or the reason for secession. They also reference the Declaration of Independence. You know, just things to have floating around in your head. Like I said, go to nationalarchives.gov. There's a lot of good stuff there. A lot of good stuff. So, well, it's been a hot day. We're finally in the mid-80s. Temperatures coming down. Like I said, you could probably hear the thunder in the background. We weren't supposed to have any rain, but we do have some dark, overcast, cloud-looking things. So we may get some. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's all right. down here in the south, for those of you that aren't from around here, about 30 miles outside of the city of Charleston. Sorry, 30 to 45 minutes outside the city of Charleston. We kind of take things a little bit slower out here. Yeah, we're a little bit more relaxed. We do push when push comes to shove. We'll push. We do rush. We know how to move with a sense of urgency when it needs to be. But if there's not a need for it, we're a bit more relaxed. It's after 5 o'clock on Saturday evening, and sun's going down. Finally got some shade back here. Like I said, it's back down to about mid-80s. It's just nice. So, all right. Well, I guess here's some other stuff we can toss around. Local discussions on social media. A lot of people are talking about the first congressional district here, and Nancy Mace. We have 3 challengers to her who are primarying her. Don't know a whole lot about them. Still need to do some investigating. Was supposed to actually do an interview with one of them, and had some things come up. I had to push the interview back, and kind of kept busy. Had some medical problems. For those of you who are aware or may not be aware of my spine surgery and the nerve damage, had some issues, some medical appointments that got in the way, and I kind of let that fall to the wayside. Probably shouldn't have, but it did. So I'll try and see if I can get something back up with that. At least get conversation going back up. Maybe I can do some Q&A with her through whatever, and write up something instead of doing a podcast interview. Get something out there anyway. But a lot of people in this district are not happy with Nancy Mace, and there are others who don't understand why people are not happy with Nancy Mace. I know me personally, a lot of people have started saying that Nancy is nothing more than another rhino, Republican in name only. As far as I'm concerned, I really don't give a damn what political party wants to claim to be affiliated with. I don't vote by political party. I'm not a party person. If you go back and look at some of George Washington's writings, George Washington stated outright the foundation of the government and the way it was constructed was totally against political parties. It was set up to not have political parties. And he himself, in his writings, some of his letters back and forth to his wife and to some of the other people in Congress and the Senate, he mentioned straight up that political parties will be the beginning of the fall of our government and our country. He was totally against it. And I agree. I always have agreed, even when I wasn't interested in politics. So I don't vote by party lines and political party and whatnot. I vote by who lines up the most with me and who sounds like they're going to represent the things that I want fought for or fought against or whatever. That's how I vote. As for Nancy Mace, I was following her for quite a while when she was in the state assembly. I had some good discussions with her through social media, some good ones, some bad ones. But I liked where she stood for the most part. So when she challenged Cunningham, which I really didn't have an issue with Cunningham either. In fact, I met him twice while he was the governor not the governor, while he was the congressman for the 1st District. And he really impressed me. But when it came to Nancy and she announced that she was running, she leaned more into what some of my concerns were at that time. So I supported her. You can go back to old videos, old podcasts, and you can see, depending on how far back you go, you'll see where I've brought it up. And as far as I know, Nancy Mace didn't even have a primary challenger at that point in time. But a lot of people are calling her a rhino. I don't know that I would exactly say that she's a rhino, but what I will say is that what got Nancy elected, she talked to the local press, she talked to the local radio station. I believe she called Kelly Golden's radio show once a week or once every 2 weeks to kind of give an update, let people know, let her constituents know about what bills were coming up to be voted on or debated or whatnot, where she stood on them, what bills that she was writing and why she was writing them, and so on. She got into Congress, and she doesn't do that anymore. She's had 3 phone call discussions with our local radio show that I'm aware of since she was voted in. And she really hasn't done a whole lot other than run her mouth to the national news networks. Does that make her a rhino? No, not necessarily. But what it does tell me is that she's more interested in getting her name out there and getting the rest of the country, if not the rest of the world, to know who she is. You're there to do a job. You're there to represent District 1. Boy, that sounds like Hunger Games. But anyway, still, you're there to represent District 1. Your job is to be on the ground, talking to constituents, find out what their concerns are, what things they may need on a federal level. Find out what things they don't need on a federal level, but a state level, and see what you have the ability to work with in getting those things on the state level done. You bring up their concerns on the federal level. When bills come up, you talk to your constituents and find out what directions they are leaning. And you vote the direction of the majority of your constituents, whether you agree with it or not. Because you are there to represent them, you are not there to represent yourself. That's not being done. That's my problem with her. In fact, I kind of get the impression, because she's in the news she's in the national news, Fox and CNN and all them, almost every day. So I'm kind of getting the impression she really doesn't care about District 1. And like I said, she cares more about making sure that she is known across the country, if not across the world. Now, why would somebody do that? 1, fame and money, which obviously being in DC, she has access of gaining, which I don't agree with that either. But 2 is she's looking for something more. Maybe she thinks she's going to be Tim Scott and go from Congress to the Senate. There's people who've talked about Tim Scott running for the presidency eventually. Right now, the last I heard, Tim Scott has said no. He can do far more being in the Senate than being president. At least for South Carolina. That's his main concern, as it should be, because he represents South Carolina. Does she want to run for presidency? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. I can't think of another reason for a politician to be pushing for their name to get out there so hard, especially when they're a freshman representative. Slow your roll, chica. It's not what we sent you up there for. Do your current job first, and then your constituents can have discussions as far as possibly allowing you to move up. So, South Carolina's been in the news again. I'm pretty sure you guys here are aware of it. It doesn't matter if you're listening to Fox, CNN, Newsnet, or whoever the other people are. OAN, or even just C-SPAN. Thanks to Jen Psaki, we're in the news again. We're in the news again because Biden decided that he wants to put people together and send them door to door to talk about the vaccine. And he's gotten pushback. Him and Jen Psaki both have gotten pushback, which is justified. But our governor of South Carolina, Governor McMaster, has said, not doing it. I don't agree with it. This is not the way to go. People need to be free to make their own decisions. He has an open letter that was sent to the local CDC for South Carolina. CDC agrees with him, says that they have not, nor will they ever go door to door to push the vaccine. They will make arrangements if somebody is a shut-in or has a hard time getting out of the house, or maybe can't get out of the house for one reason or another. If they want the vaccine and they call the CDC will make arrangements for them to get it. Somebody will come out and get them vaccinated and whatnot. That's fine. That's their choice. Totally agree with that. Well, Jen Psaki tried to call Governor McMaster's, actually tried to call out the state of South Carolina with Governor McMaster's notification. So, I don't always agree with McMaster's, but he definitely got one up on Circleback Psaki this time. His release in response to her trying to call out our state was, the COVID guidelines and the CDC and the NIH guidelines are a lot like South Carolina's weather. You don't like what you're hearing, give it a few minutes. It'll change. I loved it. I was rolling when I saw that. That was in writing on social media, and I actually screenshot it and sent it to some people. It was great, because he's absolutely right. Jen Psaki, Dr. Fauci, and the rest of them say one thing, and then a few days later they say something else. You don't like what you're hearing, just wait. They're the ones who sat there and said, everybody can unmask, we're good. Pandemic's over, we're fine. Then they turned around, I think it was like a week or two ago, they turned around and Fauci's now talking about, if you're not vaccinated, you need to be wearing a mask. I don't think they do. As of, I believe it was yesterday, it was either yesterday or Thursday, Fauci's released new guidelines after saying students can go back to school, not worry about a mask, so on and so forth. It was either Friday or Thursday. He turned around and said students who've not been vaccinated or are not old enough to get the vaccine need to have a mask when they go back to school. Yeah, no. No, they don't. It's not what the science shows. You keep talking about follow the science. That's not what the science shows. Science shows that those students are fine. So again, just like McMaster said, you don't like what you're hearing, just wait, it'll change. One of the other times that I really, really loved McMaster's and what he did and had to say was during a lot of the restrictions, a lot of places were closed. We weren't completely closed here, but we had a lot of restrictions put on us. there were people all across the country, mostly political leaders, who were really pushing for churches to be closed. McMaster's church could stand and said he's not violating the First Amendment. It's an unconstitutional order, it's an unconstitutional request, and he's not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, for an old Southern saying. I had a lot of pride in him when he said that. I thought that was a good decision on his part. So yeah, feds tried to call us out. I don't know. I get tired of it. I get tired of them. It's like a bunch of kids throwing temper tantrums when they don't get their way. But the one thing that's guaranteed in the Constitution is that the states are sovereign unto themselves. Other than the states are required to have a representative democratic governance, they decide things for themselves. If it is not explicitly labeled and listed in the Constitution for the federal government, it falls back on the state. That's in the Constitution. Goes right back to that website I was just telling you guys about, nationalarchives.gov. Like I said, I love that website. When I start talking Constitution and whatnot, that's where I get a lot of it from. When I start talking about Supreme Court cases, I'll go back and forth between them and another site from some of my criminal justice and classes and whatnot. I'll probably get more into that. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now. So, sorry about that. But I'll reference that one too eventually. Especially if I get into a topic where I'm discussing Texas. Because or even Reconstruction. There's a couple of good ones in there for Texas as well as Reconstruction. Supreme Court cases. Really, really good ones. I believe one of them is White versus Texas, I think it's White versus Texas. Go look that one up. Go to Google, type in White versus Texas. I believe that's the one that I'm thinking of. That one's really good. That's like during Reconstruction. I don't know. I guess that's all I got for right now. I mean, we're almost at 30 minutes as it is, so I should probably let you guys go. I've talked your ear off enough, kind of sort of rambling, but it's a lot of local talk. For me, for those of us that are here, a lot of it's locally related. It's all right. There's some others outside of South Carolina who might find some entertainment in it. You guys can find me on Twitter. I'm the Southern Constitutionalist there. If you are not interested in having somebody knock on your door wanting to talk to you about vaccines, information, or whatnot with Biden's little thingy, I put 2 links on my Twitter for signs that you can purchase, warning them and telling them straight up, no soliciting, not even for the vaccine, and that they are violating and trespassing if they try to. You can go check those out. I'm also on Instagram. Once again, the Southern Constitutionalist. I have my own website. You can go check it out. theconstitutionalconfederate.com. There are writings, stories, science-based, political-based, and papers that were written for school. You can find all kinds of writings there. Most of the videos for YouTube get transferred over there, not as fast as I would like. I think I'm 2 videos behind once I get this loaded. As well as the podcast. Guys, you can leave me a voice message. Go to anchor.fm, type in the Constitutional Confederate in the search bar, and then you can go and leave me a voice message, what you like, what you don't like, topics you would like to hear me discuss, something you would like for me to research. If you're in the local area and you have something you want to talk about, doesn't even have to be politics. We've got a lady who's got a plant swap a couple miles down the road from me or whatnot. I've thought about going and having a discussion with her about how she got that started, and it really seems to be working out well. And there's a couple of other people I've thought about having conversations with just to shoot the breeze and see what's going on. If y'all have questions for me, send them to me in the voice message, and then I can load them to the podcast and give you my response. You know, that's a really great way to do things. I would love to hear from you guys. I would actually love to do a Q&A podcast. You know, people send me questions or whatnot, and I answer them, at least to the best of my ability, or tell you that I don't know the answer to it and why I don't know the answer to it. So, there you go, I guess. I don't know. What else can I say? I hope my ramblings have been kind of sort of entertaining. Until next time, y'all watch your 6.